I was working, and we had gotten the news that he was in the hospital. And I came home and I dropped my bag, and I went immediately into prayer. And I began to petition. He was sick. He had diabetes. He did not know that he had diabetes, because sometimes they don't like to go to the doctor. And so we got the report that he had
boys.
Yes. And so as I'm praying, I was praying, Lord, would you spare his life? And in the midst of praying, would you spare his life? The Lord said, start praying that I would spare his life. Pray that he will be saved. And so I knew at that point that there was a possibility that he was not going to recover. And so within a matter of a few minutes, my cousin called, and she was in the hospital parking lot, and she was bawling. And I said, he died? And he was 38, and she said, he died. And I thought, wow, how do we tell our parents that they have just lost a son? So I went back into prayer. I was weeping, and the Lord said, weep now, because you will need to be strong for them. And so my parents had heard me minister the gospel message for years, but there had never been a time where I've sat down and had devotional with them. And so when I flew into Michigan, which is where he lived, the Lord said, before you do anything, have devotion with them. And he said, Psalms 23, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you're with me. And I began to learn at that point that death is only a shadow for the believer, that we transition from this life into his presence, and that the people that have transitioned into his presence, they're where they have always wanted to be. The reason why we love the Lord and we serve the Lord is that we will get to spend all of eternity with him. It's we who are left behind who are grieving because we miss them.
Right.
But once they leave this place and they're in his presence, worshiping, loving him. And so we went through that season of me taking them through a devotion and reminding them that in the middle of the crisis, God has not abandoned us. That as you're walking through those valleys, those are seasons when God literally, he is closer during those difficulties, probably for me more than any other time that I've ever experienced him. But when you're so shocked and you're so devastated because it's so unexpected, my dad could not handle his grief and handle hers at the same time. So that place was left for me. So whether it was sitting beside her in the church, whether it was sitting beside her in the funeral home, it was left for me because he could not handle the grief. And so the day of the funeral, the Lord had asked me to share a word. And so I was trying to compose myself, so I'd stepped away from the sanctuary. And when I walked out of the sanctuary, I heard this wail all the way down the hallway, and I thought, Lord, how are we going to get through this day? And as I got up to share the word, the Lord said, tell them that 2,000 years ago, I gave my son life. So today, their son can have eternal life. And that he's with me. And so I was able, when I came in, my mother was just so devastated. And I just whispered in her ears, I said, he's very much alive. I said, I know you cannot see him, but one day you will get to spend all of eternity with him. So we were able to go through that season. And it took years to literally allowing her to just talk through all of those seasons. Sometimes we don't want to talk about it because we think it's going to hurt them, but they do need to talk through those difficult times. And a few years ago, she called and she said, I went to a funeral today. And I said, you did? And it was always so difficult after that for her to go to funerals. And I said, you did? How did you do? And she said, I did well. And she said, I am so thankful. And when I heard that word, I knew she had turned the corner. She said, I'm so thankful that the Lord gave me 38 years with my son. She said, this lady only had her son for 3 years. And I knew then that God had started to finalize the healing work in her, that in the midst of what she had lost, she could still be thankful.
Wow.
That's good.
That is incredible.
Yes.
Like what you saw? Make sure to comment and like below. Hit that subscribe button for more content uploaded weekly.